Hello, hello. How are we all? Happy Wednesday. I am Lindsey Hall. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm an intimacy and empowerment coach. And what that means for me is that I really love to help women deepen into intimacy with themselves and with other people. I love to help women own their pleasure and their power. And I love to help you live a life that you really, really fucking love. And I do that in all kinds of ways. But one of the things that I like to do every week is I have these tea break chats where I come on and I talk about the things that have been going on in my life, what's come up in the past week or so, and then I answer your questions. And I do this because I really feel strongly that none of us are ever alone in this. And so whatever is going on in my life is probably going on in some of your lives too. Obviously in different ways, in different contexts, in different, like we all have different experiences with all of this, but I am not unique or special with like any of the stuff going on in my life. So the more that I can come on and share with you and talk to you about what's going on, the more that you get to be like, oh, me too. I resonate with that. So that is why I do these. So that said, also I'm noticing, I don't know what's going on with my hair this afternoon, but ignore it. It doesn't matter. So that said, what has been going on this week? In some ways it's been a big week, and in other ways a nothing week. Now that I say that, I feel like I said the same thing last week. That is sort of the recurring theme right now. When I think about what's been going on, often the way that I do it is I think about what have I dropped in and talked to my coach about this week, because I have voice note coaching with her, and so I drop in whenever there's something going on, and usually that's the stuff I talk about with you guys, because I'm like, oh, there was this thing. But actually the past couple weeks, including this week, the things have been, oh my gosh, things feel really good right now. And like, yes, there's stuff, but also it is just like sliding past me in a way that it hasn't before, or I'm processing it, but it's just so super fast. And it's been all about really like soaking that in and then getting intentional as well with, and this is where my coach is like super freaking awesome, because where I'm going in and being like, oh my gosh, here's all these amazing things and here's why life feels so freaking awesome right now. And then what she's been helping me do is go, okay, but why does it feel that good? What is supporting that? What have you put in place to allow it to be this good? And where is your next edge then? Because all this work that we do is about constantly expanding our zones, expanding our comfort, expanding our growth. And you do that by reaching an edge and pushing past it, reaching edge and pushing past it. And a lot of the time, and certainly most of the time, what's happened for me so far is edges present themselves. I do something and an edge is like, oh, here it is. And I'm like, oh, that's uncomfortable. And I have to work through it a lot. Whereas because I'm in this phase right now, which honestly is my favorite phase, like, let's be real, all of this growth work is not always comfortable, and it is so necessary, and it hurts in a good way. But it doesn't always, sometimes I'm like, oh, I hate this part of the work. This work sucks, that I want to like go and hide under a blanket. And sometimes I do that for a while, and then I come back out and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do the work again. But all that said, there's like, it's all worth it. But like I said, not gonna lie, this part where it just feels really awesome, totally my favorite part. But while I'm in this part of like, things are just, I'm feeling so in flow and emotion and like loving it all, then it can become the work, and you can just, it's totally, completely okay to sit with that and let that soak in and just be there. And also, because my coach knows me and knows what I like with all of this, it's like, okay, and where can I find my next edge? Rather than waiting for it to find me, rather than doing something and waiting for it to be like, it's like, where can I play around? And it doesn't always have to be like big, huge, scary edges. It can just be little, tiny tweaks of like, okay, where can I do this instead of this comfortable thing? Where can I push myself a little bit over here? And so that's really the phase I'm in. I'm sort of realizing, I'm not sure if any of this is making sense, but that's also where I'm at. I'm just saying the things. So what has that sort of looked like and felt like in real life, I guess is the question. When have I been dropping in and saying, oh, this feels so good? So things like back in March, so what are we, 2 months ago, is when I first decided to run a class on blowjobs. And I was terrified to say that out loud. Like, in fact, you may have heard that at first I put it just in my Instagram stories and I wasn't going to put it anywhere else. But then I started putting it in private Facebook groups that I'm in. And eventually it got to the point where I put it on the grid on Instagram. I put it on my Facebook. I eventually put it on my website. I now introduce myself at networking events as a blowjob coach. All that grew through this discomfort. But that was only 2 months ago. Whereas now I am running a self-pleasure class next week. And I have not had to do any of that big, scary stuff. It was like, oh, I'm going to run a class on self-pleasure. And I'm straight away going to talk about it and promote it. And I'm actually sending an email about it now, which I thought I would be done with by now, but it's taking me a bit longer. So there'll be an email coming out if you're on my email list after this episode. And that's the first time that I'll be sending an email about a product that I wrote. So it's all of these things, the growth that I'm feeling now and the comfort level I'm feeling with the self-pleasure class, I couldn't have even imagined 2 months ago when I came out with the blowjob class. And now I'm like, oh, this feels so good. It doesn't feel scary. Even to the point where, so I went on a school field trip with my kiddo yesterday, and I was sitting on the way there on the bus. I sat with another parent chaperone, and he asked what work I do. And I told him, and I brought up the blowjob class and the sex stuff I do. And this was to another dad. And I would have never done that in a million years before. This is the first time where it's like, oh, I can mention this to A, a parent on a kid's school trip, and B, a man. And it didn't feel super scary. There was a brief moment of are you going to say that? Because I started off with I do life coaching, and then I do divorce coaching. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just tell the whole story, because the whole story is all a part of what I do. So it felt really cool to be able to say that without it being terrifying. And honestly, nobody that I have told this to yet has been like, oh, you horrible person, I can't believe you do that. Some people are like, you do what? But way more than even that, I'm getting, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Tell me more. How did you get into that? Where do your clients come from? What do people get from that? That sounds really exciting. Good for you for doing it. That is the overwhelming response that I get when I talk about this kind of work. So sharing that and being in the flow of that is really cool. Then another place that it's come up, this whole sort of being in the flow of things, has been with, oh, I completely just lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, podcasts. Podcast is what I was going to say. So I've really been discovering more and more about me and how I operate. And part of this is to do with the human design readings that I had done a couple weeks ago, and learning more about my energetic blueprint and about how I am sort of internally, energetically wired to work. And the whole idea of human design is it's meant to be very empowering. It's meant to be kind of play to what is already imprinted in you instead of fighting against it. And I've really, really found that to be true. And one thing that I learned in that, and I'm noticing so much more, and this is where the self-awareness piece, once something's pointed out to you, you can be like, oh, I see that now, is that I operate best and I get in my highest alignment and flow when I am moving, when I am in motion, and I mean that both physically and energetically. So if some people get their best ideas when they're sat in a quiet room on their own, and they'll just get these downloads of ideas, or some other types of people will have it come to them in their sleep. They just get all the answers they've been looking for, or their latest program comes to them, or whatever. That doesn't work for me. If I sit here and wait for an idea, I will be waiting forever. Instead, for me and my type and my personality, I get it. I need to be moving. My energy moves when I'm physically moving my body. So I've been getting out and out of the house a lot more often. I've been going out into nature for walks, etc. I've also learned, again, through my human design, but also through just my lived experience and paying attention to it more, that I respond to things. So I get better stuff happens if somebody says something and I'm like, oh, yes or no to that. Or, oh, that sparked an idea. Or I'll hear something and be like, oh, I could do a great class on that. Or I have something to say about that. So my stuff comes from a response to some sort of other sensory input, whether it's conversations with people or, like I said, like listening to something or reading something. So I've been really, really going with that. And I started all this by saying podcasts. What I'm getting around to is that's come up with doing, I've been doing these tea break chats for a year now, but I've also started, if you haven't seen, I've also started doing a single parenting, co-parenting, dating podcast with somebody where we just talk about all things single parenting and dating, which is super awesome. I've also started guesting on other people's podcasts more. And so the more, and I really freaking love that too, because then it's other people asking me questions and saying like, oh, tell me more about this, tell me more about that. And I can just like go with it. And it's so much fun. And it gives me even more clarity by talking these things through. It gives me more clarity about what it is, like what I do, why I do it, what I offer, what I want to offer. And all of that comes from being in motion. Now, for me, a challenge is balancing that. I love being in motion. It feels so good. That's when stuff moves and flows for me with I also need to rest, because we all need to rest. No matter what no matter how we operate, we all do need rest at some point. And I need to pay attention to that too. And so sometimes, like yesterday, I got home from my kids' field trip and I just melted into the couch for the rest of the night. It's not what I intended to do. I had loads of stuff I wanted to do, but I was done for. So I did absolutely nothing last night. And that's okay. Other times it's small pockets of rest. Like it might be that I'm at my computer, like just in total flow, working for hours and hours, and I have to step away and have even like a 1-song dance party. Like I just need 3 or 4 minutes to turn on a song and dance and move my body and rest from what I'm doing. And then that's enough to sort of recharge me to keep going on the computer work. So I'm learning these different ways that I need rest and when I need them and when to listen to my body. But also knowing that if I rest and sit still and hold still for too long, then everything sort of goes down a notch and I'm like, oh, and then it's a lot harder for me to get started again. And I don't love being in that place. I love the like flow and everything's going crazy, like in a good way kind of energy. So all of this is, the point of all of that, I think, is that the getting to know yourself better and really understanding who you are, how you operate, what lights you up, what doesn't, the more that you can understand about yourself, the more that you get to live out that way and live more authentically and live in this way that lights you up. And really, all of this comes back to intimacy with self. So that is the foundation of what I do with myself and for all my clients. It's intimacy with self is all about understanding you, knowing you, all parts of you, the parts that you think are amazing, wonderful, lovely, and the parts that you might think are not so lovely, but they all are part of you. And bringing all this together, deepening into your intimacy with self, just makes everything so much better. It makes your relationships with yourself better, with others better, and it makes life more fucking fun. Like, you can see in this one, I am like lit up because as I get to know myself better and as I do more and more for me, the more lit up I am, the more everybody around me gets to benefit from that. The more content I put out, the more offers I have, the more, like juicy stuff to share with you, but the more that I am in touch with my friends, the more that I see people who I care about, all of this stuff comes from being lit up. And I think all of that is super cool. In summary. Has anything else come up this week? Like I said, I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I talk about really specific things. I know last week I talked about here is how I planned the birthday party for my child. And this week I feel like it's a bit more sort of airy-fairy, woolly stuff. But honestly, all of this is important to me. And all of this is how I live and operate. Sometimes I'm super practical and just doing all this stuff. And other times I'm let me just say these big words that I'm there, not even big words, but big ideas that don't even necessarily make sense. But if you feel me, you'll feel me. And it's not always about the specific words. It's about some of you will be listening to this being what nonsense are you talking? And others will be listening going, oh my gosh, I get it. I feel you. Like, oh, I'm lit up just listening to this. And what makes you feel that connection will be different for everybody and different at different times for you and times for me, and that's okay. So yeah, so today's episode is more of the I'm just gonna talk and hope that you surround you with this feeling, because that is how I'm feeling right now. I'm just feeling all the things, and I want you to feel that too. I think it is contagious, and I want you to feel that. So yeah, that's where we're at this week. Okay, I'm gonna move on to questions, and I've got two this week, which, okay, to be totally honest, neither of these are the typical kind of coaching questions that I normally get or answer on here. But I like them both, and they're both things I want to talk about, so I'm going to talk about them both. Because guess what? Tea Break Chat with Lindsey is my show, and I get to talk about whatever I want. And you did ask me these questions, so here we go. The first question was about, do I do still Arbonne as a business, and do I have any kind of thoughts, recommendations, suggestions around running an Arbonne business like that? And I'm taking that to mean like network marketing sort of things in general. So yes, I do Arbonne. And Arbonne, if you don't know it, is I used to be really good at just describing this off the top of my head. I don't do it as a business really anymore, which is why I'm not very good at describing it anymore. But essentially, it's a company that does nutritional products, it does skincare products, and it also has a small makeup range. And the whole idea is balancing skin, body, and soul. And that these three together make like the trifecta. And so I got into Arbonne back in January 2020. And I first just did it as a customer. So a friend of mine did it, and she was selling this 30 Days to Healthy Living program. I wanted to get into that because this was right when my marriage was falling apart. I had a newborn baby, and I knew that I was going to, and eating is not a great thing for me, feeding myself. And I knew that if I was going to get through this time of newborn and marriage falling to pieces, I needed to be as strong as I could be. I needed to do everything in my power to give me the best advantage to get through this shitty time of life. So one of the things I did was sign up for this 30 Days to Healthy Living, which is going to cut out all the crap in my diet and bombard me with nutrients, and both from the food that I was eating and then also nutritional supplements. It was phenomenal. I loved it for a ton of reasons. It was really, really great. And after that, I started just telling people about how awesome it was. And I was like, oh, why don't I sell this too? Because then I can make some money off telling people how amazing it was. And I got into selling Arbonne that way because I absolutely was in love with everything it was doing for me. So the question, do I still do it? I still use the products. So we're now, almost 3.5 years later, I use Arbonne products every single day. I have an Arbonne shake for breakfast. I use all of my skincare as Arbonne. The vast majority of my makeup is Arbonne. I'm a big, big fan of the company, of the values, of what it stands for, of the actual products and how they work for me. I don't do it as a business so much anymore, and I stopped that because I was getting into coaching and I didn't want it to be confusing, to be totally honest. I just thought if I was trying to talk about coaching stuff and talk about Arbonne stuff, people were going to be like, what the heck am I here for? And I didn't want that. So I sort of let the business side go. But the question then of do I have my tips or suggestions? So it didn't specifically say this in the question, but what I'm reading into that is if you are considering doing something like that, doing a network marketing business, getting into selling your own products like that, I'm a big fan. I know some people hate network marketing with an absolute burning passion. And I think where I can gather that comes from often is because people have spent a ton of money on buying products. They've then lost out. They feel like people prey on the vulnerable people to get them to spend all this money on products and lose a bunch of money. And it's bad news bears instead of success stories. I think that can be true, but so can the opposite. There's with network marketing, people latch onto the bad stuff. I think there's a whole bunch of good stuff with it. So if you're considering getting into it, my tips are it should be a company that you use and that you love and that you absolutely if you adore the products, then that is the number one starting point. You should never, ever, 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 ever sell something that you don't actually stand behind. So stand behind the company and the products. Another common complaint about network marketing is that people are gross and be hey girl, I just want to slide into your DMs and like immediately pitch you this thing. And there's all kinds of icky ways to do it. But again, people are icky. People will do it icky ways, and people will do it really, really good ways. And there's both, and you just don't have to be icky about it. And also forgive yourself if you're learning. So I don't think I mostly did it in an icky way, but if any of you are watching this and you're like, Lindsey, we hadn't talked in a long time, and then you slid into my DMs and were like, hey, I think you might want to see this. I think I probably did that a few times, and I hope I didn't do it in a gross way. But if I did and it felt icky, then I am really sorry. There's a point too where you're learning how to do it and you're like, I've never done this before at all. And you're finding your feet between like what feels comfortable and what doesn't. So, if you're, like I said, if you're watching this and you're like, it was a bit icky, Lindsey, I'm really sorry. Please accept my apologies. I wouldn't be icky about it again, I hope. And if you're thinking about doing a business, just do it in alignment with you. You don't have to do it the way you've been told to do it. Do it in alignment with you. I think that's it. Is there anything else on that? No, but yeah, in general, I think that selling products that you love is a great thing. And if any of you want to know about Arbonne products, ask me, because I obviously really freaking love them. They're not cheap, and I would not have spent this much money over 3.5 years on something that I wasn't totally in love with. But I keep buying them and I keep using them because I think they're fucking awesome. So that's the kind of thing that you should get into if you want to do it too. Something that you're like half-ass about, don't even bother. But something that you love, sure, why not? Go for it. Great. I'm not ever telling you guys to use Arbonne because it's going to make me money. I'm telling you, use it if you want to because I love it. And if I get some money on the side of that, then fantastic. That's how it should be, in my view. Okay, the second question I had, I am running a bit low on time today, so I'll try and answer this one quickly, but this probably is like, yeah, I'll try and be concise. Again, this isn't a normal, typical coaching question, but it's something that my best friend and I have been talking about this week, and so she posed it as the question for this. And it essentially is, we've been talking about, how can I set up the context without being too personal? I can't, so I won't totally give you the context. I'm just going to say that she and I have been talking about how, like, fucking amazing we both feel right now. There was something going on in my life that I'd gone to her and said, like, oh, what about this? And I feel resistance to this. And then we talked it through and came out the other side going, oh my God, like I fully own this amazing statement. And we had talked about how we both feel like different than people around us sometimes. We both feel like really fucking powerful goddesses, like absolutely full of like power and light. And she was saying, but how is it that we feel different? Like we can't, it feels like we're the anomaly, but we can't be. That's not possible. And I said, no, it's not. We are not the anomaly. We don't have something that every other woman doesn't have. What we do have is that we have done the damn work. We have worked, so both she and I have been doing this work on ourselves, the hard, uncomfortable, icky stuff. Like I said at the beginning, it doesn't always feel good. We have been doing this for years, and it's not always comfortable. And she and I both get pissed off and angry and like about it sometimes, but we've really been working hard on us, and we still are. But we're both at this point now where we're like, oh my God, like, we feel different. People feel different around us. Like the men that we are dating notice it. And that's where I come up for me was like a head turned. And I was like, oh my God, I've attracted this attention that like, how? It's like, oh, because my light is turned on and up and it is noticeable. And so her question had been like, what, like, yeah, how are we different? And we're not. It's because we've done this work and we want to somehow share that. And I mean, it's what my coaches do. Like, they've been teaching me how to do this. My coaches have been teaching me how to turn this on. And I do this in lots of smaller ways. Like, specifically, let's get through, how do I help you get through a divorce in a way that feels good and aligned and help you feel super happy? All of my work is to help you live a life that you fucking love. But specifically, we are feeling just this like, not specifically, generally we're feeling this like lit up, turned on, and we want to share it with you guys, with all of you. So we are trying to come up with a way to bottle this somehow. We don't know what it looks like yet. But we somehow want to put our heads together. She is a licensed therapist. I am obviously an intimacy and empowerment coach. We both have expertise and experience that's really powerful and amazing. And so we're gonna do something. I don't know what it's gonna be or when it's gonna come out or when it's gonna be available. But her question, this is a long-winded thing to say. Her question was, how are we so special and different from everybody else? And our answer that we came up together was, we're not. We've just done the work, and we want to help you guys turn that light on too. So let me know if you're interested in that, because we're going to offer it anyway once we figure out what it is, because we are really, really, really excited about it. But is this something that sounds good to you? Or are you like, oh my God, yes, tell me the secret sauce. Like, what is it? Where's the magic switch? It's not magic switch. Spoiler alert. I can tell you that right now. There's not just a one-off switch you have to do. It's the work. But if you're like, oh, tell me how to do it. Like, tell me what the secret sauce is. I want to know. Let me know that in the comments, okay? I want to know who's excited about the thing that we don't even know what it is yet. I'm excited. She's excited. Whatever it is. I don't know yet, but it's going to be fun. Okay, I feel like this was sort of not a normal week's episode for you, but it was, like I said, it's where I'm at. Sometimes I'm deep, I'm down in the dirt and rooting around in all the messiness, and sometimes, right now, I'm floating up in the clouds, and both of those get to be true and amazing and where we're at, and you switch between them. It's, neither of those is better or worse than the other, and sometimes this week I'm just gonna chat airy, cloudy stuff at you and hope that it resonates. So if any of this does resonate with you and you want to hear more about it, you want to chat more about it, drop a comment, send me a message. We can absolutely talk about more. The ways that you can work with me right now, specifically, I'd probably make this shorter and say, just go to my website, lindseyhallcoaches.com. Go to my website. You can see the ways to work with me. In summary, I've got some classes that are available, the blowjob class is up that you can buy anytime that you want. I've got the self-pleasure class coming up next Tuesday, May 23rd, and that will also be available for purchase on replay afterwards. Those are all about your pleasure in those things. So whether it's the blowjob class or the self-pleasure class, it's about empowering you to get the most pleasure, the most fun, feel the most sexually empowered in your life. That's the point of everything I offer. Then I've got Dirty Talk program, which is coming up starting June 4th, which is 4 weeks of calls together. It's all on my website. And then you can always do one-to-one coaching. And then the Divorcee program. You can always get the Divorcee program too. So loads of ways to work with me. I totally get sometimes it can be overwhelming. So either check out my website, lindseyhallcoaches.com, or send me a message and we can chat through it. I think that's it. I'm going to stop waffling for this week, and I will be back here next week. As always, I put up the questions for my Q&A in my stories on Instagram on the Tuesday before. Also, if you want to send me an email, lindsey.hall.coaches@gmail.com, you can send me a question on email. And I think that's it. I'll see you all next week. Mwah!